oftentimes they'll say, well, he had a doctor's appointment or she had a doctor's appointment, and we'll just remind them that we need a note. And so the doctor's offices will retroactively send those in. So a lot of people, after they get that information, they clear up some of the absences and they become excused because they didn't realize they had to do that, or they didn't realize that they should call into the school. And so that's another piece of education, like to get them to let us know why and to communicate with us. So far and away, anybody that reaches out to us generally will tell us that it was oftentimes for an appointment, but they didn't get a note.
Okay, thank you.
Do you guys do a nighttime call, like end of the day call?
We don't. So the elementary and PC don't have that really set up in the system. And you can see why probably, right? Like there's so many absences, and that's the little kid way, because we don't have them changing classes. So like if they're not there, the parents know they're not there. And I think that John could set that up, but then there's always that worry of, do we desensitize them to that really frequent call at that age, and then they don't listen to any of our calls? I don't know, but we're trying to make sure that we have a system for, like a warning system that is more effective. So we are trying to get more feedback from parents who are in that category.
Any other questions for Carol? I do have one for you. Mm-hmm. Out of all the families that make up the unexcused absences, do you have any idea what percentage of those families we're actually working with actively?
That we are working with?
Yeah.
So there are certain situations where I know that it's a long-term medical situation, and they have a big absence, but we know it's just like this one-time thing. We're not pursuing it. We know it's taken care of, and it's going to be over when the things are worked out. But the Truancy Academy piece, we sent out 44 letters to families at the PC and the elementary that would be families who were above 8 absences, and we didn't know why. So we asked them to join us to talk about it, do some planning. And so out of those 44, 3 people contacted me to tell me, like, oh, they were medical things, and so then they didn't come to the meeting. And then the others came to the meeting, and we just talked about it. And they were, there was some irritation, and then some like, oh, yep, I didn't realize that. I think everybody was pretty agreeable on like setting some plans, and then our plan as an MTSS group is to reach out to them again in 6 weeks, I think 6 to 8 weeks, and then talk about how their plan is going. And I think like the lesson that I've learned this year, with particularly working with the 2 families closely that I am, is a lot of it is just having somebody to communicate with. And so we're trying to figure out how we can replicate that with, okay, if our MTSS team is 12 people, how could we have those 12 people adopt 2 families and change it for 24 of our families?
Yeah, that was going to be a follow-up question is, are there additional resources that you've identified that you need to help with this issue?
One of the things that I think that we need to send out that information, and we need to go back to an incentive idea toward the end of the year, just pick that incentive, because I think then kids are like, Mom, I need to go to school. And so then it kind of corrects those kids that don't want to go to school for a family, because that's hard to deal with for a parent. They're like, you gotta go. And then the other thing we talked about was the other barrier is when a kid misses the bus, but we still want them to come to school. So I've been driving, or Travis and I have been driving, or Justin and I have been driving out and picking people up, bringing them to school, and just kind of not allowing them to miss school, if you will. But you can only do so much of that in a day before your whole day is spent like traveling. And then, so we talked about the possibility of maybe partnering with one of our local churches to see if there are any people that would just be willing to be on-call drivers and set that up, maybe have volunteer background checks so they could be like, hey, can you go pick up so-and-so and just drop them off at school at your earliest convenience? And I think a lot of that just puts it back on the parent to say, like, don't miss school. Like, and we don't want you to miss school either, and we're going to put our money where our mouth is by showing up and picking up the kids.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any other questions for Carol?
No, I was just thinking if we use any other vehicles other than the school vehicles and that, Kevin, would that involve some legalities? Because if we have volunteers going out picking up kids?
It would be that the parent would have to agree to it too. We couldn't just
Yeah.
go.
Okay.
And for me, like if I pick up a child and I don't have another rider with me, then I just turn on my voice memos on my phone and leave it on my dashboard and just record the whole way. And sometimes I get some really silly conversations, but that way it's recorded and there's
Yeah,
no
we need
question
those
as well.
precautions. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Ms. Dawson.
All right, Jamie Pressler.
Good evening. So we also had a day of eclipse watching. All of our students were able to go to places around the middle school and just enjoy the day and be able to experience the eclipse. And it was cool to see all the kids out there playing and seeing it. So that was very cool. Our MTSS team had some swirling topics that needed teacher input. So our remaining building improvement team meetings will be devoted to one topic is truancy, what Carol just talked about. The missing work mystery, our ELA curriculum work. Our K-8 is looking at different options for curriculum. And we'd like to be vertically aligned, so we've been looking at some pieces. We have a human trafficking prevention group that consists of mostly our social studies teachers. And then always in middle school, engagement is a big deal. So our engagement strategies is always circling back to how can we get our kids to stay engaged and listen and pay attention. And you really have to pull a lot of tricks out of a hat for middle schoolers, that's for sure. And then the last group is working on cultural awareness in our school. We feel like we have some great resources in our community, and we'd love to pull just different kinds of people into whether it's a lesson or maybe like our morning 10 minutes we have, we'll say a morning meeting with our first hours. So we've had Aaron Shaw come in and talk to our kids about bullying, and he just shared some really cool stories with our kids. Then at our last staff meeting, I sent out a Google form that asked 3 questions. What's going really well in our school, whether it's in the culture of our school or in the classroom, what's something that we need to work on, and anything else we need to know. And I got some really great feedback from teachers. So I'm going to quote Liesl Merrifield, who is in the audience here. She said, "Our 7th grade team is excellent at working together to support our students and each other. We set high expectations for our students, and we celebrate when they succeed with numerous field trips, rewards for no missing work, and rewards for attendance." So their latest trip was to the junior achievement. It was the highlight of her year because of the relevancy of the curriculum taught beforehand. So I'll just pause a minute with a quote. They spent an amount of time during lab just really working on getting them ready for this field trip. And it's really, I would describe it as like the Children's Museum, where you get to go and experience the grocery store and the bank and all those things, but more on a prestigious level. So they put that all together and got to go to the real-life simulation of running BizTown at Junior Achievement. It was an awesome, awesome experience for them. And then the last highlight I want to talk about is in our hallways, we have these huge chains down our 7th and 8th grade hallways, and that is a competition that our 7th and 8th grade math teachers have. And they really talked about, we've adopted the Carnegie curriculum for math, and they have an online component, and it's called Mathia, and it's kind of tough. And so what they did was every time a kid finishes a workspace, they get a chain. And so they're competing all the way down the hallway. Whichever class gets to the end of the hallway first gets a pizza party. So it's just a growing. So if you ever walk through, that's what that's for. So, any questions?
Questions for Jamie? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Simon.
All right, hello everybody.
I'll echo spring break was great for everybody. The kids were a little tired at the high school coming back this morning, waking up early and getting here, but they were excited to be back, and it's good to see them back in the hallways and everything. So I just want to highlight, this is our big week for testing. Our juniors will take the SAT on Wednesday, they'll take the ACT work keys on Thursday, and then they'll follow up with the Michigan part of it with the M-STEP. And then our 9th and 10th graders, they're putting in work too with the College Board, PSAT 9, PSAT 10, and then college visits. Renee Platt has done a really great job of setting those college visits up. Mike Maximchuk is juggling the College Board, OEAA, ACT, and the MDE websites, making sure all of our students are accounted for and ready to test. So that's a big deal. Chelsea Steck has the accommodated portion of that. So it's a lot of juggling of classrooms and making sure that students have the right accommodations for their test in the right room with the appropriate accommodations. So they're doing a great job. Obviously, all of our students end up at the high school, and we get to celebrate their success coming up in May for graduation. Between 9th grade and graduation are a lot of credits that need to happen. So the half day in April, we're having Rochelle Bowerman. She's from MDE. She's going to come in and talk to us about different options that we can grant students credit. Obviously, not everybody that comes up is at the 9th grade reading level or math level or science or social studies, but it's our job at the high school to help them manage themselves and get through to get that diploma. So there's just different options that we have out there, some that we probably don't know about, but we want to make sure we give our students as many opportunities as possible to get that credit so that everybody can come across that stage or walk across the track if we're outside, because that's a big deal for everybody. The Senior Passion Project, if you haven't heard of it or been involved in it, it's a big deal for our seniors. Adam Teen does a great job with it. The seniors do a lot of research throughout the second semester of high school on a goal that they have for a career. They research it, write papers about it, and then they end up presenting to people in the field coming up. So they'll actually bring in engineers, they'll bring in, you name it, people will be coming into the high school. It's a big deal because our students have to really fight through the nerves. They have to fight through, presenting it in a very formal way, creating a resume, talking about the skills that they have that make them employable to somebody that they kind of look up to. So it's a big deal. The students take it very seriously. Adam has done a really great job with that project, and it's grown throughout the years. So I appreciate him for doing that, and the kids learn a lot from it. And one of the big success stories is simply that they learn that they can do it. Going into an interview is something that is very intimidating, and Adam does a great job of walking them through it. There will be kids in tears when the Passion Project starts. There will be kids very, very nervous, and they find out in the end that they are able to do it, which is great. So that's what I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Dan? Dan, is a Passion Project, is that focused primarily on college level or?
No, whatever they're going into. So we've had somebody that wanted to go into landscape.
Okay.
So we bring in a landscape business that they present to. Yeah, it could be HVAC, you name it. Yeah, Adam then goes
Any
through
field.
and makes contacts of bringing people in.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right,
Any
thanks.
other questions for Dan?
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Aiken.
Okay, well, it was kind of neat today to get around and watch the elementary kids and the PC kids and the middle school kids this afternoon. A lot of kids going outside watching the eclipse, and I was in the middle school this morning, and I think every classroom I walked by, there was a lot of education going on about the eclipse that was going to take place. So that's great. Our teachers, I think, district-wide did a great job. To kind of echo the sentiments of Dan, we've got a lot of testing going on over the next 6 weeks in the district, and I'd like to thank all the teachers and the administrators that put the time in for that. Until you do it, I don't think you can appreciate the time and effort that goes into it. So thanks to them, our kids are going to have a good testing experience, hopefully. On March 21st, our administrative team was at NC RISA for a teacher evaluation training. It's being mandated from here on out that yearly training occurs for all of our administrators on the evaluation tool that we're using. It was pretty informative, and I think we've got some good tips moving forward on what we're going to be using. Our special education department is currently working with NC-RESA to complete our student-level corrective action plans. They are all due by May 13th. And then on March 26th, the Newaygo County Human Trafficking Task Force met with the A21 International Reach Director to discuss a pilot program we're looking to implement statewide. And it's kind of a big deal. We've met with multiple senators and legislatures in Lansing to get funding for this. We're just looking for an urban school to partner with. Once we do that, we'll have the funding secured, and it will be a statewide pilot that the governor's office is looking at, watching for implementation for a statewide mandate for this curriculum to happen in our schools. March 26th, 3 board members and myself attended the NC-RESA Countywide School Board Appreciation Dinner. The presenters for this year's dinner were Teresa Federle and Jamie Pressler. They presented a scaled-down version of the Human Trafficking 101 training that we present at colleges and other venues. And I think if Rob were here, I know Ken was there and Steph, I think that opened a lot of eyes. Not necessarily of our board members, but the other county board members. There were a lot of tears, a lot of just education occurred that night, and had a lot of compliments about our ladies and their presentation. And I think countywide, everybody's going to be implementing that training for their staffs. So if you want to speak to that, you guys, I mean, pretty moving night.
I'll tell you, it was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And I was amazed that, looking at the apps on your phone, certain apps have a hidden backdoor messaging platform. I would have never known that. And, so just realizing something like that is pretty powerful to, I've got a grandson that has his first cell phone, and it's like, I want to look at the apps that are on his phone, and I'm talking to Mom about it. So I wouldn't have had that conversation if I hadn't gone to that. So it was really cool. So I really liked the presentation that they did. It was very powerful, and I think it's really, really important that we continue that education, not only within Grant Public Schools, but within the county, and hopefully, statewide, because, it can happen so quick. It can happen so quick. There was a story or some information that was shared that I'm going to get the timing wrong, but the person online that was targeting the child said that their goal was if they could have that child, I think it was 25 minutes, if I'm not wrong. 18, thank you. 18 minutes, and they can have that person hooked and get the information that they need on them. 18 minutes. And, they have goals of having, countless numbers of these kids, targeted every single day. So, it's really some scary stuff. So, I'm really, really impressed with the program that you guys put together and that you're presenting. Top notch, and, congratulations and thank you very much. So it was very powerful stuff.
Yeah, I'll just say it was a very insightful presentation. I've heard bits and pieces of it before, but to be a part of that environment and see countywide the conversations that were taking place was really powerful. And so thank you, Jamie, and I know Teresa's not here, but it was a great evening. And some of the Newaygo County Career Tech students served us dinner, so that was very cool to see as well.
Yes, yeah. We did make sure that their teacher, their parapro, was there, and it was made very clear that if the dinner wasn't any good, it was their fault, and if it was good, it was the kids' fault, and the kids got a round of applause for the dinner, so it was very good. Any questions for Kevin on his report?
No, I don't have a question, just a comment. I know that the problem we have, especially with students, young people, and parents, to warn all that when you post pictures of children on your social media sites, that those sites can be accessed by anybody. And that's where they're finding a vast majority of children's pictures coming from, off of social media sites, and they're ending up in other countries. These predators that have millions and millions of pictures of children and young people, they're getting them free. All they're doing is accessing everybody's social media sites. So I would just encourage parents, but also our students, just don't post your pictures of people on your social media site, because they are being taken and they're being used by predators.
Okay, that's my report.
Kevin, do you have any idea of, you said we needed to identify a urban school to work with. Any ideas of?
We're looking right now in the southeast corner, somewhere in Metro Detroit.
Okay.
Because that's our number one hot spot in the state of Michigan, so that's where we're looking. Royal Oak was one possible partner, so that's what we're trying to get down in that area. I think we've got the rural, the rural west side covered here. But I don't think we're going to rule any school out if they want to partner with us.
Sure.
In that setting.
Good. All right, anything else for Kevin?
No.
All right. Takes us to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion on the consent agenda?
Just thank you to those who are retiring that are included in this group.
Okay, any other? Okay, hearing no other discussion, I'll call for a vote on this. Richard?
Oh, you and me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Danette?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Sabrina?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, so that takes us to action item 1. Which is approval of the resolution for Public Act 10, 2023, and that's on page 3137.
Yep, the board is being asked to approve the resolution allowing the district to engage in projects which constitute a state project and utilize construction mechanics as defined in Public Act 10 of 2023. The board is being asked to approve the following resolution.
All right, so we do have a resolution in the pack. Let's see here. So this is for prevailing wage. Does anybody want to read through this?
Do you want me to just start at whereas?
I'm not seeing that.
It's 36.
That is the security, that is the next item on the agenda. Wait a minute.
36 is the,
Oh, yes, sorry.
That's the one.
Okay, thank
Because the
you.
top's not filled out yet, so do you want me to start at whereas?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. 1, the district is now or expects to be engaged in certain projects, including but not limited to security card and speaker system installations that qualify as a state project and utilize construction mechanics, as those terms are defined in Public Act 10 of 2023, PA 10, and 2, PA 10 requires that for every state project utilizing construction mechanics, the district must pay prevailing wages to construction mechanics as determined by the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. And 3, PA 10's Section 9.2 states that PA 10 does not apply to state projects paid in whole or in part from a millage that was A, authorized by the revised school code, and B, authorized by voters before PA 10's effective date, i.e. before February 13th, 2024, and 4, On August 2nd, 2022, the district's voters authorized its operating millage, permitting the district to levy and collect 18.118 mills from 2023 to 2026 inclusive, and 5, pursuant to that voter authorization on the district's behalf, one or more taxing jurisdictions collected the levied amounts with respect to the winter 2023 property tax levy and will remit payment to the district millage revenue. And 6, any delinquent tax payments related to the millage revenue are also considered millage revenue. And 7, the district is authorized to create a fund or funds for the purpose of acquiring, constructing, extending, altering, repairing, or equipping public improvements or buildings, and to provide appropriations, credits, and transfers to said fund or funds, and to provide for disbursement thereof. And 8, the board is of the opinion that it is in the best interest of the district and its residents and taxpayers for the board to establish a capital improvement fund in order to provide for funds needed from time to time for the projects and various other public school improvements, the fund to be composed entirely of millage revenue. Now therefore be it resolved that, 1, the board does hereby create and establish a capital improvement fund, the fund, as a special depository account to be kept in Choice 1 Bank, Grant, Michigan, or such other depository as from time to time may be subsequently approved by the board. The fund shall be used for the purpose of appropriating, providing for, setting aside, and accumulating millage revenue and accrued interest thereon to be used for the projects, including fully or partially funding contracts involving construction, mechanics, and otherwise acquiring, constructing, extending, altering, repairing, equipping, or furnishing public school improvements, building sites, facilities, or other facilities which the district is authorized to acquire, construct, extend, alter, enlarge, equip, or repair by statute. 2, the board hereby authorizes and directs the superintendent, the individual acting in the capacity of the district's school business official or a designee thereof, to cause the fund to be established in accordance with the terms of this resolution and to transfer millage revenue to the fund in the amount of $5,000. 3, other than the millage revenue transferred into the fund pursuant to paragraph 2, above and accrued interest thereon, no other monies or revenues shall be deposited or transferred into the fund. 4, millage revenue transferred into and accumulated in the fund shall not be transferred, commingled with the other funds, encumbered, or otherwise disposed of, except for the purposes of the fund as established in paragraph 1 above, and shall be governed by all applicable laws. 5, all resolutions and parts of resolutions insofar as they conflict with the provisions of this resolution be and the same are hereby rescinded.
All right, thank you, Sabrina.
You're welcome.
All right, so we have a motion by Sabrina. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? So I will just point out that this is mandated by state law, so. Any, anything else on this before we take a vote? No? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Rich?
Yeah.
Rachel?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Danette?
Aye.
And Sabrina?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion passes. All right, next item on the agenda is approval of the purchase of access control system.
Yes, the board is being asked to approve the purchase of card access control for exterior doors of the district. After several walkthroughs and manufacturing selections, the technology and facilities directors are recommending the Avignon access control system for our district. The Avignon card access has many configuration options and has the ability to tie into our existing surveillance systems. The access control system is being purchased through REMC, Michigan State contract. The funding source is Section 97, Safety and Security, and 31 AA Mental Health Safety and Security Grant. The purchase of the Avignon access control system is not to exceed $249,378. This purchase supports the community survey as well as the staff input and survey of the grant funding and is part of our district strategic plan. Presidio Network Solutions Group LLC responded from the RFP and will be responsible for the full installation, programming, and training. Having an access control system allows you to grant or close access to those trying to come into the building. Access control systems are currently common in many school districts. Thank you for your support.
All right, do we have a motion on this one?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, so we have a motion and support. Any discussion? Do we know a timeline on installation?
As soon as possible. As soon as we get it approved, he's going to start the process. They're going to work in the evenings.
They'll work, so
Yep.
they'll start right away?
Yep, they'll start right away.
Okay.
And
What's
then
their,
how long will it take?
yeah,
Do they
what's their
figure how
time?
long?
I would think within probably 4 to 6 weeks is the projection to get the whole district done.
Okay. So maybe by the end of the school year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Welcome, Rob.
Thank you. Apologies, everyone. It's been a long day.
So Rob, we are currently in the board packet on page 38. We're discussing the purchase of the access control system. So I'll let you get there. We have a motion and support on the floor. We're in discussion, so if you have any questions on that?
It's page 38.
Yeah, I'm aware, and I'm in support of this, so we can move on.
Are you good to call a vote then?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, you're up first, Rob.
Aye.
Danette?
Aye.
Rich?
Yay.
Rachel?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
I'm an aye. And Sabrina?
Aye.
All right, great. Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Purchase of high school paging platform.
Okay, the board is being asked to approve the replacement of the high school paging platform. The high school needs to replace the public address system that is currently in place. The PA system has been slowly failing over the past couple of years. The sound will cut in and out, and there are places in the building where speakers just don't work. Volume is too low and cannot be adjusted. Louder in places where there is no coverage. By upgrading to the modern IP paging system, we can significantly bolster security measures, enhance response time, and proactively prevent potential incidents. The classrooms, cafeteria, and hallways will have display speakers to give a visual with audio information where and when needed. All other locations will have a standard wall or ceiling speaker. Every corner of the school, inside and out, will have adequate coverage, including the gym and fine arts center. The technology department received one quote from the RFP. Upon the completion of the evaluation of the technology department has determined that Washiga system is a great fit. Washiga is an all IP-based PA system. The purchase of the project is not to exceed $89,184. The funding source for this project will be Section 97, Safety and Security, and 31AA, Mental Health, Safety and Security Grant.
All right. Do we have a motion for this?
So moved.
Support.
So we have a motion and support. Any discussion on the purchase of the paging platform?
Kevin, were more than one company reached out to it? Only one responded?
Well, he put it on the REMC, and only one responded, so it was open to all state contractors to bid it.
And just correct me if I'm wrong, but this is one of those items that we thought we were ready for at our last board meeting, but we had to go back and verify
Correct.
that it was in line with the PA-10.
PA-10, yes.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. So I don't remember, is this quote, did the quote change after going back?
I believe it stayed the same
Oh,
as it was
okay.
prior. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was our lowest one. He had, I think, for that one, he had 3, but that was by
okay.
far the lowest one.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions on this one?
I should ask, do these contractors carry a 1-year, 100% warranty for materials and labor? Do you know?
I don't know that answer. I can find that out.
Even on the previous one?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
current,
they should.
yeah, for that
Let me-
price.
let me
I
put
would
it that way.
imagine they will, but I will find that out for
Okay.
sure.
Okay, okay.
Any other discussion?
I'm sure this is a yes, this- when it says the gym, that also includes the
Yes.
locker rooms.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, I will call for a vote to approve the purchase of the high school paging platform. Rachel?
Aye.
Rich?
Yeah,
Danette?
Yes.
Rob?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Stephanie?
Hi.
And Sabrina?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion passes. All right, next item on the agenda is food service box truck.
Okay, the food service requests board approval of a food service box truck for delivery. 3 quotes presented, which the food service director requests LaFontaine Chevrolet of Dexter for the 2023 Chevrolet Express box van. The funding for this proposed purchase will be from excess fund balance in the 22-23 budget. This item is on the Department of Education pre-approved equipment list, which proper RFP quotes for equipment item purchases RFP was completed at the beginning of March. The board is being asked to approve the purchase of a food service truck.
All right, do we have a motion on this one?
Was our mechanic in on checking these out, you know?
Yeah.
So moved.
Support.
Who made the motion? I'm sorry.
Rob.
Rob made the motion. Thank you, Rob. And Sabrina with support? Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
discussions?
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, when we talk about excess in the food fund budget, I guess this has been brought up, the quality of the food and some of the situations we see with the amount of food thrown away. And kids go through the line, and out of all the items, they leave one in their hands, the rest goes in the trash. And understanding that if the kids don't take a certain amount of food, we don't get paid for it.
Correct.
So kids are being forced to take food that they don't want, and they say they're not going to eat it, and they throw it away. So when we talk about there's an excess fund, there is and this isn't attacking anyone, I'm just understanding how we end up with an excess amount in the food, that if we would get better quality food, where more protein, because it really lacks protein, would this be the money that would be used to do that with?
Yeah, it would offset that. Yes, it would
Okay.
offset that cost.
Okay, so at the beginning of each year, when we go through evaluating our food budget and that, knowing that we have to get certain equipment and that, we may have a tendency to cut back on the quality of the food so that we would have the excess to be able to buy the equipment with. Would that be a fair analysis?
No.
No, I don't think that's the intent, Richard. I mean, we've got different packages that we I don't want to say subscribe to, but we choose what our package is going to be for the kids, what format that is.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not being done to determine whether we're going to be able to buy a truck or new equipment.
Okay, so it's just understanding the process. Like I said, it's not pointing fingers, but I know that somewhere, I wish we could alter the way the food is distributed and not to see the amount of waste. And I know we're not going to eliminate that 100%. I know that. I mean, that's a logical thing. But if we have $60,000 extra or this and that, I'm just saying, how do we come up with, okay, we need to buy a certain amount of equipment, we've got X number of dollars, so we look at that, automatically we're going to subtract what we need to get for that year, and then that money that's left there, that's what we're going to use to determine what package we're using for our food budget. Is that a correct way of looking at it?
Well, I don't think she subtracts out the equipment we're gonna use, but she makes that choice, and then we get that reimbursement amount for the food that,
Okay.
you know, what we sell or what we're handing out.
Okay.
We do have a plan for the excess fund, and the excess fund does have monies in there for improvement on the breakfast, and that's set aside. So it's not, the equipment is first, and then we have enhancements for breakfast and lunch. That is planned in there. It's also planned to have extra help to make additional items like that have, you know, you have to heat up protein items. So I need an extra food service person for
Sure.
that. So that's in the plan, an extra food service person, if we can get that. Enhancements in breakfast, that is in that. And then I have, and she has the allocation for the food truck. The freezer, that's really old in the middle school, it houses the majority of the freezer items for all the buildings. So that's in the program, in the plan itself that was reported to the MDE last week.
So what needs to be done so that we can increase the protein quality of like our breakfasts and so forth? How can we increase the protein quality, reduce the sugars and the carbs? Do we need more funds to be able to do that? Or maybe I just say, I like that to be looked into, to see how we can, what is needed. I mean, if we're short overall on the budget to really step it up a notch or two, to include that, then how do we get those funds? Where does that come from? That's what I'm asking. Because I am concerned with that, is the numerous times I've been in there, and, you know, children need the protein, the carbs and the sugars. You know, they're not even going to make it to lunch, and, you know, everything starts going downhill, you know, from that point. And if they have the protein, that's what's going to feed their brains. That's what's going to feed them for a longer period of time to get to lunch. So I'll just throw that out. If there's a way that we can look at it, if there's something that, you know, we need to put a committee together. Committees don't always solve the problems or anything, but what our options would be. And if we need more money or something, you know, how we can approach that. So just brainstorming with you.
No problem, thank you.
Yep.
And Kevin, I know that we've talked about this as a board a few different times, but is there a way we can have someone from the food service department and transportation, other departments, come and give reports to the board?
They're going to start attending at the May meeting,
Okay.
okay?
Okay, any other discussion about the purchase of a food service box truck? Kevin, I know that you looked into the maintenance records of the
Yeah.
current
Yep,
truck.
it's in rough shape. I would not want it leaving the city limits.
Not even used for band.
Good luck.
Okay. That was thrown out at one time. Yeah.
It's in rough shape.
Do we know what will happen to the current truck?
I don't know. That's something I've got to talk with Donna about and see what we can do. I mean, if somebody wants to purchase it back, but it's not in good shape. It really isn't. A lot of rust and a lot of mechanical issues with it in the last couple of years.
I wonder if NC Risa might be interested in it for their mechanic program, just to be able to tear into it and,
Yeah,
you know.
could be an option.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion on this one? All right, I'll call for a vote. Rachel?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Sabrina?
Aye.
Danette?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
And Rich?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion passes. All right, next item on the agenda is consideration of superintendent contract. So there is a copy of that contract in front of each of you. So at the last board meeting, I asked the board if they would allow me to have a contract put together. That contract is what is in front of you for us to consider. Before we get into any discussion, we do need a motion and support, please.
So moved.
Second.
All right. That'll allow us to get into discussion on the contract. So this is, as far as compensation, this is in line, just a little bit higher than the interim contract that Mr. Aiken is under right now. But other than that, Clark Hill put this together for us, and they addressed some concerning language that they saw in the last superintendent contract. And Kevin has reviewed this, and you are good with the conditions in this?
Yeah.
Okay. So just to give you guys a few minutes to go through that. Okay, we are open to discussion whenever the board is ready.
So am I right, when I look here, it's looking like this is 3-year?
3 year, yep, which is consistent with past superintendent contracts. Yep.
Well, I mean, I have all kinds of comments, so I'll try to keep them brief. First, maybe I'm misremembering, but I don't remember from the last meeting, which there was a lot of conversation, that it was an approval for you as a board president to go and write up a contract. If you feel like there was something about what does Kevin want, and we could see about that. So the fact that, the next board meeting, there's a contract, which, by the way, we're seeing for the first time. I seem to recall you saying in an email when you got the administrator's contract in November that we couldn't possibly vote on it because it was the first time you'd seen it. I mean, you didn't mention that until like January. But here we are. Here we are with a contract that I'm literally looking at for the very first time, a 3-year contract, no less, starting today, basically. So there's no consideration of a vetting process. There's no consideration of, interviews, getting public feedback, stakeholders. That none of that matters, right? We're gonna vote. Obviously, we all know where the vote's gonna go. And that's going to get passed. And the timing of it's not lost on me either. This sure feels like a rush job, seems how we have a contract already in place through the end of June. So why now, I guess is my question. Why on April 9th, after a discussion for the first time about the superintendent search, are we seeing a contract in front of us that we're going to vote on and sign? Feel free to answer it, don't answer it, I don't really care. This is what is continuing to be a problem. And that's all I have to say. Right now, I don't know, I may change my mind in a minute.
At our last board meeting, one of the things that I shared was I thought it was important to get feedback from our stakeholders. And I still think that's important. And yeah, this is the first time I'm seeing this contract as well. So that's a bit concerning to me.
Other discussion?
May I ask Kevin some questions?
Sure.
Wait, no, Kevin said he's not going to interview anymore. Remember? But go ahead.
Mr. President, may I go on?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Number 12 in your contract. You ready for that?
I don't know, do you have, I
Medical
don't have a copy in front of me right now.
Maybe. There you go. Tough question. Number 12, you ready for that?
Are you going to state for the audience what 12 is?
Medical examination, yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I think I can do okay with that.
He has to submit to a medical examination, and that including drug and alcohol tests.
Yeah, that's fine.
And that. On this, are you, I know you say you're content with this contract. I want to point out that the board has the right to unilaterally and to terminate the superintendent's contract at any point with or without cause. In the event that the board does terminate your contract, you would be given a severance pay equal to 6 months of your current salary level or the balance of the contract, which is ever less. Before, am I correct that the previous contract that the board, that the district was committed to a 1-year salary instead?
It was a 1 year.
Okay.
Yep.
So instead of a 1-year salary for severance, it's 6 months. You're okay with that?
I am fine with that.
Yep, okay. I'm just saying that because in the previous, it was 12, we reduced it down to 6, on that. And that, just that the board can terminate with or without cause. Now, was that clause, that was in the previous one, Mr. President?
So, yeah, the termination provisions are pretty much the same.
Pretty standard?
Now, this is for reasons that are not arbitrary and capricious, yes,
Correct.
yes.
Okay.
Other discussion?
So are you going to let us look at this and then we'll come back and vote on it in May?
If that's what the board decides to do. This is not up to me, Rob.
Okay.
I am one of 7 on
So
the stage.
I have one other question, then that's for you. So was one of the things that Clark Hill changed in the contract was the residency portion in our bylaws? Because it says here the board waives the residential requirements for the superintendent. I believe it's like 25 miles. Or
Something
20,
like that,
something
yes.
like that.
Yep.
So is that one of the things that Clark Hill waived?
Clark
Because as a
Hill-
board, I didn't waive that. I
Well,
just first
that's-
time seeing
that
it,
is
so.
part of our discussion and our decision tonight, isn't it?
I mean, again, you realize the optics of this right now are terrible.
Like normal.
I mean, it's up to you all, but, I mean, that's, to go from it being brought up, and I think it was even brought up, I don't even know if it was brought up by us or if it was brought up by a community member, what are we going to do? And we go from not having a direct plan, but, at least I threw out there what best practices typically are, to then, again, so we're going to get a bill from Clark Hill on this as well? Yeah, shocking. Man, Clark Hill, they're making a killing on us, aren't they? Here we are, we're voting. Yep.
Ken, how much is it to go through MASB for the superintendent search?
Through MASB specifically, I'm not sure if I have the exact amount. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of $7,000 to $8,000 for them to bring us a list of names.
And that's just the list of names?
Yes. People, this is not public comment time.
So there's also NC RISA that is, would be an entity willing to help with that as well. They've helped other districts in our county. That's really kind of what they're there for. Yeah.
I think
So
Kevin's
we're-
been doing a great job, and I don't see why best practice wouldn't also, and this is, I'm just saying, but why best practice doesn't also include promoting within? Like, why would we, if we're doing a grow your own and we're all about, starting from within, and that's just a question.
Yeah.
I always promote within, and then I train after that
I mean,
for the next person to step up and.
That is an option. It's not always the best option, and it's not necessarily an option when you're looking at the best option or the best practices when you're looking at a position of this magnitude within a public education district. Sure, it's awesome to promote within. I'm a big fan of promoting within. I mean, the fact that we have alumni coming back and teaching here is also a part of that. But that doesn't mean that you can't also entertain and interview and look at other candidates. I don't even know why I'm doing this. I said it all last time. It's obviously falling on deaf ears on this board. So I guess we'll go to a vote. And then, like so many other things that have happened over the last 18 months, we'll see what the consequences are.
Any other discussion on this?
No, I just want to support what Sabrina said. It's not too often that in a school district that you're able to see the performance of your superintendent or future superintendent over a 2 to 3 month period to be able to evaluate. That would be the best practice and option if every school district could have their candidates come in and perform their duties for 3 months and to make an evaluation from there, instead of going strictly by an interview or by their resume. And our situation in being able to bring this school in line with the reading, writing, special ed proficiencies and so forth, and to be able to bring some hope to the students and so forth. Kevin has demonstrated that, not just over the last couple months, but he's been here for a good time as a principal. And I'll say it again, Mr. President, that he understands the students. He understands our situations. He has good reports coming back from the administrators that I know. And I just feel that the best practice, best option, time-wise, efficiency-wise, fiduciary-wise, is to move forward. And as the agenda says, a consideration. And I would like for us to consider this contract and put it up and vote so that we can just move forward. We don't need to keep on dragging things out.
Any other discussion?
I'll just say Kevin might be the right person for the job, but I still believe it's important for us to think about how we're moving forward, and if there are things that we can do that involve best practices, I think that we need to do it. It's important to do it the right way. That's not taking anything away from Kevin or the job that he's been doing.
In best practices from a board would be, and I mean, the irony of how many times this has come up on the other end of this board would it be then if that was the way that people were feeling right from the get-go, this should have been a conversation before now. This shouldn't, again, be discussed for a few minutes in the last board meeting during the discussion time at the end of the board meeting, and then turn around 30 days later with no conversation. It wasn't even in our board packet, and we've had the board packet for like a week. I mean, it was there, and I was curious about it, and then it was gone, and then it came back, but there was never any attachment to it. It was just consideration of superintendent contract. And there was not one bit of communication about what that would entail. So again, surprise, here we are, night of a board meeting, and we're being handed something for the first time and asked to vote on it. It's just shocking how many times this has happened over the last year plus. It just never ceases to amaze me.
So I'll just address part of what you just said. It is not common practice for us to include contracts in the board packet at all. So our administrator contracts that we just approved at the last board meeting, those were not included in the board packet either.
Yeah, but we had a chance to see them ahead of time.
We did. And
Yep.
we have the opportunity right now to decide what we want to do. Do we want to continue in the situation that we're at with an interim, or do we want to move forward and be done with that and focus on other things? That is the board's decision.
Okay. So how is that going to be done when comes time to vote?
What do you mean?
How are we going to decide whether we're considering or we're actually voting to sign off on this?
So I will ask for, so we have it on the agenda that we're considering this contract. A vote of yay would be to approve this contract. A vote of nay would be to not approve this contract.
Okay.
Any other discussion on this item?
Yeah, I have a question. Or can you answer Mr. President, on, there was a community meeting that Kevin held, and that, what was our feedback? Did we get a lot of negative feedback from that? Was it positive? What, can you give us a little bit, because it was opened up to the community and so forth. What was the feedback from that?
So first off, that was the forum that we talked about, the special ed investigation, or the monitoring, I should say, not investigation, the monitoring that MDE and NC RISA were in for. I personally did not hear anything from that. I don't know, Kevin, what kind of feedback did you get from that?
Yeah, it's pretty much some positive, I think some people appreciated it, that we talked about it, and, we didn't really run from it, and we're taking steps to address it, so I didn't hear any negative feedback.
Okay.
But you rarely do.
Yeah, I mean, that's not really
No.
data
Right.
that you draw a decision
Right.
based off of.
I will say that I personally have not heard of any concerns about the job performance that Kevin has done for the district since he has taken this role, either from community members or board members. I don't know if any other board members have. Okay. I would think that if there were concerns, we would hear about those. So, are we ready to call a vote on this item? Yes?
So
Okay.
call.
All right, so roll call vote on this. Sabrina?
Aye.
Rob?
Nay.
Rich?
Yay.
Stephanie?
Nay.
Danette?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Well, congratulations, Kevin. I guess you have to postpone retirement.
All right. Next item on the agenda is approval of resolution for the 2022-2024 early retirement incentive plan.
Okay, what we've got, we have a retirement incentive plan that was part of a letter of agreement in the last contract that the GEA signed. We just do not have any board signatures. And to make things go smoothly, we're going to go back and cover last year's buyout and this year's buyout. And the resolution talks to that, and then you've got basically a descriptor of what this early retirement incentive plan is.
So we have a resolution in the board packet on page 63. If anybody is interested in reading that resolution to make the motion.
Board resolution. A meeting of the Board of Education of Grant Public School District was held on the 8th day of April, 2024 at 6 p.m. Whereas the board believes it is in the best interest of the district to offer reasonable financial incentive to teachers who meet certain criteria and desire to voluntarily retire from the district. And whereas the board has authority under the Michigan Revised School Code to offer such an incentive, and whereas the board desires that participation in the Grant Public Schools 2022-2024 early retirement incentive plan for teachers shall be totally voluntary on the part of any eligible employee, and whereas the board may or may not offer such an incentive in the future. Now, therefore, it is resolved that the Board of Education adopts the Grant Public Schools 2024-2024 early retirement incentive plan for teachers. The plan as presented to be effective immediately and to be published to eligible employees no later than the day following the adoption of this resolution. The terms and conditions of which are set forth in the attached plan document with accompanying exhibits, and further, the board retroactively approves and ratifies past decisions of previous retirees who elected to participate in this plan before it was approved by the board pursuant to this resolution. Be it further resolved that the superintendent or his designee is authorized to implement the plan in accordance with its terms as written. The superintendent and/or his designee shall be the plan administrator with the duties and responsibilities described in the plan document.
All right, Thank you, Sabrina. So we have a motion. Do we have support?
Support.
All right, so we have motion and support. So I want to point out, Sabrina, I think you said 2024, 2024, it's 2022, 2024. I know it was just a misspeak on your part when you were going through that. So just so that the board understands the situation with this, the same day that the GEA contract was approved by the board, there was also a letter of agreement dated for that same day, basically putting together a 3-year retirement incentive program. That was never brought to the board for approval, but it has been paid out. So we have to, well, yes. So we had 4 or 5 teachers last year, I believe, participate in this plan, and we have some teachers that are planning on participating in this year. Now, they don't know that this was not done properly, but so we are going back and with this resolution, we are retroactively approving the payments from a year ago, and we are approving the payments for this year, because again, the folks that are looking to participate in this, they didn't know that it wasn't actually approved, okay? The letter of agreement actually that was put together stated that it was for the entire term of the GEA contract. Okay, so through 2025, this is allowing it through this year, and then it's done. So that's the situation with this one.
Was it the $20,000? Is that what?
This is, yes, this is that $20,000 payment. If the teacher has to meet certain criteria to get that payment.
But the ones who went last year, that's already been paid out to them?
Those have been paid,
In
yes.
full?
I'm sorry?
In full, or was it in increments?
However they chose to get that payment, I don't know those details. So, again, we're retroactively, with this, we're retroactively approving that move that was made, because it was made without board approval, and we're approving that for this year, and then it's done.
Question number 1.
I'm sorry?
Question number 1. What if we do not approve it? What happens?
Well, we can't do much about the money that was paid out already. I think that the big thing with this is the folks that signed up for this thinking that this was a valid plan for them, they get hit the worst, right? Because they were planning on this, and so this is one of those side deals, guys, that we're trying to clean up.
So how many did we have go last year?
I think it was 4 or 5, somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't know the exact number. I don't know, Holly, do you?
3.
It was 3 last year? Okay, 3 last year, and we have how many this year?
We have 2 right now. So
2 right now? 3 right now, okay. So
8, so that has cost us $160,000.
no,
No?
there's 3 and then 3.
Just 3 from last year, not 5?
3.
Yep, 3.
So it'd be 6, so
Yes.
120,000.
Yes.
But we were looking for people to retire at that point in the discussion. We wanted them to retire because we wanted to, save money that way, bringing in new teachers. So we've already saved that part. I mean,
Yep.
we've saved that.
And
That's
these-
just like if they were still there.
And these were, I mean, we had these discussions when there were labor negotiations, and
Yes.
there were, so I don't know where the surprise is coming from, but.
So we are just you just want us to make the decision as we go ahead with this year?
We
And that would be
need, we
just
need
through-
board action on this to spend the money. We're spending taxpayer money right now without board action.
So I make the motion, we proceed with it.
Okay, well, we have a motion and we have support.
Okay.
So on this resolution, the question, we're in discussion. If there's no other discussion, we can call the vote.
Well, East said a side note, so just for clarity, who signed the letter? I mean, if it wasn't in the contract that the board approved, and this came forth, there was some sort of a letter or agreement at the same time that the contract was signed?
Dated the same day, yes.
The same day.
Yes.
So who and when, where did this all take place? Why wasn't it part of the contract if it was done at the same time? So I'm trying to understand how the flow of how it even came into existence.
Yeah,
And
Kevin, I think
enforced.
you have a little bit of background on that if you want to share.
Well, I mean, honestly, if you look at the contract, the board didn't even sign it. So, I mean, if we want to get into the bigger fish in the pond, I think we honor the commitment that was made. The staff, the teachers, they aren't aware of this.
Right.
So.
It's not their fault.
It's not their fault.
Right.
And we're not doing business that way anymore.
So
Things
how-
need to be signed off by the board. There needs to be communication in that aspect.
No, I agree with that. I don't have a problem.
The
Yeah, we're not
letter
here-
of agreement had the signature of our past superintendent and a GEA member. I don't remember exactly who it was that signed it.
Okay. Which, that's okay if they did that, but it should have been brought to the board.
Legally, yes.
Legally,
It
the
has to
whole
come
nine
to the
yards.
board before we spend the money, yes.
Right. Okay.
But we knew
No,
that. We
I
knew it
mean,
was going to happen.
superintendents have the authority to sign contracts for their staff and their employees. We manage the superintendent manages the staff. I don't know how to make it more clear than that, but whatever.
The superintendent does have the authority to spend up to a certain amount. You are right. The superintendent does not have the legal authority to implement a program like this without board approval. Are we good to call the vote?
I am.
Okay. All right, Danette,
Aye.
Stephanie,
Aye.
Rich,
Yeah,
I'm an aye. Rob? Aye. Sabrina?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
All right, thank you, motion passes. All right, so that takes us to approval of the treasurer's report.
One quick question.
Yes.
Not going back on that, but just a question of that. Like we have the resignation of one of our staff members.
Mm-hmm.
If they have the qualified time in, does that also apply to them?
So that is for retirement.
Only?
Yes, that what we just approved was for retirement, yes. So they have to actually retire under the system. So, all right. Can I get a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
So moved.
second.
Any discussion? Holly, did you want to go through this at all? Anything?
For expenses this month was 1.9 million. There's a lot of activity we have in our.
Can you
building.
grab the mic and just bring it closer?
We had 1.9 million for expenses that went out of the administration office. Revenues was 2.3 million. So we do have a lot of activity going on at the admin office. That's it.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any discussion on the treasurer's report?
Where do we stand for legal fees? Do you know?
I'm sorry. 129,000. That includes up to February.
That's only through February?
Correct.
Any other discussion on the treasurer's report? All right, hearing none. Stephanie?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Rich?
Yay.
Sabrina?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Danette? I'm sorry?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Thank you. Motion passes. All right. And next up is the general fund summary. Can I get a motion on that, please?
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Any discussion?
Amendment 1 was put in effect, and all that is included on here for the March board meeting that was approved for the budget. We're working on the new budget coming out. There'll be, the admin is signing up for Amendment 2 and 24-25 budget recommendations from each department, each admin office right now, too.
Any discussion on this?
Holly, what do you think, are you able to project by the end of June what the projected fund balance may be? Do you have any idea? Or can you guesstimate?
I'm hoping my Amendment 1 is close. It's 14.66.
Okay,
I'm hoping that we're close to that. I use a conservative number.
yep,
Our board policy is 10%, but the MSBO says between 15 and 20, so
okay.
we're a little bit low for that, but it is a conservative number, 14.66.
Any other questions on the general fund summary? All right, hearing none. Danette?
Aye.
Rich? Yeah.
Rob?
Aye.
Sabrina?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Stephanie?
Aye.
And Rachel?
Aye.
All right, great. Thank you. Motion passes. All right, so that takes us to public comment.
All right, the Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on district matters. To permit fair and orderly public expression, the board shall provide a period of public participation at public meetings of the board and publish rules to govern such participation in board meetings and in board committee meetings. The rules shall be administered and enforced by the presiding officer of the meeting. The presiding officer shall be guided by the following rules. Public participation shall be permitted at a time as determined by the preceding officer. Anyone with concerns related to the operation of the schools or to matters within the authority of the board may participate during the public portion of the meeting. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and will be requested to preface their comments by an announcement of their name, address, and/or group affiliation, if and when appropriate. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes duration. No participant may speak more than once. Participants shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or other participants. The presiding officer may prohibit public comments which are frivolous or repetitive or harassing, interrupt, warn, or terminate participants' statements when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, or obscene, or irrelevant. Request any individual to leave the meeting when that person behaves in a manner that is disrespectful and disorderly. Request the assistance of law enforcement officers in the removal of a disorderly person when that person's conduct interferes with an orderly progress of the meeting. Call for a recess or an adjournment to another time when the lack of public decorum so interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting as to warrant such action. waive these rules with the approval of the board when necessary for the protection or privacy of the administration of the board's business. The portion of the meeting during which the participation of the public is invited shall be limited to 30 minutes, but the time frame will be extended if necessary so that no one's rights to address the board will be denied. Tape or video recordings are permitted, subject to the following conditions. No obstructions are created between the board and the audience. No interviews are conducted in the meeting room while the board is in session. No commentary, adjustment of equipment, or positioning of the operation is made that would distract from either the board members or the audience while the board is in session. The person operating the recorder should contact the superintendent prior to the board meeting to review the possible placement of the equipment.
All right, thank you, Mr. Aiken.
Public comments?
The definitions of a shepherd is a person who herds, tends, and guards sheep. The duty of shepherds is to keep their flock intact, protect it from predators, and guide it to market. Do not think for 1 minute that you have any influence other than instilling the fear of being at the school. On those of us that you seem to think are mutants, we are the wild sheep, the haired sheep, those animals that you look upon wondering their worth because they produce no fleece. You are not our shepherds. In the Bible, shepherds are used to represent leaders of gods. They watch for enemies who might attack us, and they defend them when necessary. Some of you are wolves hiding behind your positions here. You choose to only defend those that have wool, those that will bring a good price at market. You truly think that those that do defend us are enemies, yet you are the enemy. A shepherd is to tend to sick or wounded sheep and rescue lost or trapped ones. I'm here to tell you that I'm not sick, lost, or wounded, though you think I am lost. Know that I am exactly who I am and who I am meant to be. Over the weekend, 2 board members posted disgusting propaganda calling homosexuals groomers, posting blatant hate publicly into the community. Speaking of parents and those that support me for who I am as criminals and pedophiles, groomers and sex traffickers, using the elected position to publicly spread hate. Yet they sit here on this board saying that they represent all the children of this district. They say that others are pushing their agenda upon the kids in this district, yet they sit here, the hypocrites, and they are pushing their beliefs upon us. Miss Gort and Miss Block, can you explain to me why you are pushing your religious agenda on me when religious organizations make up 30% of all child sexual abuse? Who is grooming who here? You use your platform to condemn me and weaponize my community for your gain. No conversation or conversion camp or prayer will change who I am. I am made in the eyes of the Lord just as you are. I have 2 straight brothers, yet I am not. I have nothing to do with how it has nothing to do with how my family has raised me with love and acceptance and understanding. You say I do not understand what I am because I am a child. That this is a choice. Do you think I would choose to be straight if it stopped people from being hated by people like you? Because you all seem to think this is a choice. I hope that none of your children or grandchildren ever come out, as you have proven to the world that they are not worthy of your love or acceptance.
Thank you.
We didn't get her name.
I'm sorry?
Did she say her name?
Her name is Hope Hargraves. And I'm going to finish her comment here because she missed a little bit. So let me make it clear to you, you cannot pray the gay away. I cannot convert your children to the dark side and make them gay, nor can anyone else. There isn't some superpower we hold that will bring them over to our side. As many of you should not hold positions on this board because you do not understand inclusivity. And once again, you make this district unsafe for those of us that go against your norms. My daughter's wearing a sheep costume tonight because you called them sheep. She's not a furry, she's making a point. I'm making that clearly with all of you right now. Now I'm gonna come up here with something different. First off, you need to rewrite your guidelines at the beginning of the public speaking. New York versus Sullivan states caustic speech is allowed, so you might wanna look into that. I would like to encourage Rachel to actually attend a CAHC meeting since her posts from this weekend were once again against them. And the last week it was against a bullying survey parents were notified about. You have several public opinions, but I've yet to see you at any of the CAHC open meetings to actually educate yourself and ask questions. So please make sure you attend so you can be informed about these meetings. And you haven't attended one since I've been for the last 3 years, but you have a lot of opinions. We do have your screenshots from this weekend and Sabrina's that you guys shared against transgenders, and stating that they are not real, stating that all homosexuals are groomers. If the rest of the board would like to see those, I can send them to you because you called my child a groomer. You called anyone that goes through and supports these children groomers, sex traffickers, and pedophiles. And you all did, and we have the proof of it. You copied those screenshots and you reposted them again, even though Rachel got caught in her fake accounts. We'll get past that now, and I'd like to know, with this board, you keep changing things. You keep saying that now contracts have to be approved by the board. You just told Rob that contracts didn't have to be approved by the board. But that was a huge thing with the CAHC contract. Now you were telling us before LOAs don't have to be approved by the board because they're approved by the superintendent and the GEA. But all of a sudden now the LOAs have to be approved by the board. Are you gonna put it out there in one way or the other, or are we gonna have to guess every time it doesn't go your way? Because it's getting ridiculous. You change it at every single meeting. It's either you guys have to have contract approval and LOA approval or you don't. You can't change it every time because the community's noticing this. We're seeing it. And you're doing what's good for you, not for everybody else. Go back and watch the videos. It happens at every meeting. And again, 4 minutes it took you to make another decision, and I have no problem with Kevin being super. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I'm all for it. But it took 4 minutes, and not one person on this board, except for a few apparently, had seen the contract prior to walking in here. It took you 6 minutes of reading it. That is not how a board works.
Thank you, Tracy.
It's time to get it together, people.
Lindsay Malish. I have 3 follow-up questions from this evening. The first being to expand on Richard's question about the access control and paging systems and the maintenance and entitlement on it. Could we look into to see what that entitlement is, and then ultimately what the maintenance is after that? So usually it's like a 3-year maintenance window. Because I just want to make sure from an upgrade standpoint and a maintenance we're covered. And to add on to that, the going forward maintenance of these systems, will that fall into the technology budget, or will that fall into like the building and grounds maintenance budget? So I was just wondering on that. And I work with Presidio often. It's a great company to work with. The second question and comment I have came from Richard's question as well about the community forum when we were, he brought that up during the superintendent evaluation. I attended that community forum and submitted questions that Friday previous. I think it was about 15 questions that I submitted, and some of those questions were not specific to the MDE audit, but I was advised at the community forum that only questions that were submitted in regards to the audit would be answered. So I really want to follow up from a disappointment standpoint. If I was able to ask questions about the superintendent and just the overall hiring process and decisions, it was not made clear to me that that was allowed in the community forum, and that was only to be designated to questions specific to the MDE audit. The third item I have a question on, and Kevin, perhaps you have more detail on this. When the board approves for the superintendent to go into collective bargaining at the time of a GEA contract, do you know what that gives them the authority to do? Because I'm having a hard time following that we're saying we have a GEA contract that's not valid and not signed, and then what would we do to address that? Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Good evening, Board. My name is Blake Hall Curtis, junior at Grant High School. And if I can for a moment, just piggyback off of what Mr. Vance said. I know it's one thing to hear about the food from a board member, but maybe let's hear about it from a kid. And I can 100% confidently stand up here today and say my dog eats better than some of the food that we feed at Grant. I know it's been a problem for years. When you're handing out expired milk and chunky milk and uncooked meat to kids. I know there's technicalities on what has to be done with food, but I think we can all agree that it is something we should look into and maybe come up with a better solution to it, because when someone's just grabbing one thing off a plate and throwing everything else away, that does no one any good. And then if I can just speak about the continued comments towards LGBTQ students, especially by Mrs. Gort and Mrs. Veltkamp. I know some of the board members sat in on an appreciation dinner where Mrs. Federle and Mrs. Pressler gave their sex trafficking presentation, which I've heard quite a few times before. And that truly demonstrates to us what groomers are. I think she gave you that lesson as well. I'm sorry Mrs. Gort and Ms. Veltkamp missed that. Maybe they could take a page out of that book. But I don't really think I fit the criteria of a groomer, as some of you would like to think I do. But I just think we should be a little more careful what we say, especially when we're sitting on this board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Lisa Alcina, City of Grant. I wasn't exactly speaking tonight, so sorry, I'm going to reference my notes. During the discussion on the superintendent contract, Mr. Vance said that Mr. Aiken is doing a great job with the special ed program, and Mr. Thorne brought up the form that Mr. Aiken presided over, and he stated that all of the feedback was positive. I was also at this forum, and I think I was actually sitting in front of you, Ken, but respectfully, I would like to disagree with some of those comments. There were several violations found by the MDE. I asked about the district doing self-audits and if Mr. Aiken was aware of the potential violations. As director of special ed, he did not seem to be aware, but I didn't get a very clear answer to my question. My question is, how can you promote from within when there were issues with the special ed programming? As a director, shouldn't you be aware of issues in your program and seek to address them? How can we as a community trust that Mr. Aiken will be aware of what is going on in the whole district? And further, are there any community resources available that could help with some self-audits, specifically with the special education programming, to avoid a situation like this again? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dorinda Vance, and I would like to say a few words in support of Sabrina's comments at the end of February's board meeting, because her comments have been challenged. And I would like to just say, Sabrina, your first remarks were directed toward the increased exposure of American school children to sexually graphic materials. You're quite right. The NEA has made it crystal clear that they have an agenda to radically change American culture through early exposure to pornographic literature. Several years ago, a panel of doctors and psychologists were commissioned by the U.S. Congress to investigate the effects of pornography on the human psyche. They reported that, in a word, the effects are devastating. And if that is the case for adults, it is exponentially worse for children. We have a sacred duty to protect the innocence of children during these formative years. So I thank you for what you said. Sabrina, your second point was that we should focus our attention on recapturing the excellence of education that used to define our nation. Well, was that a valid observation? It was only a few decades ago that America had one of the highest literacy rates in the world. Now we rank 65 among the almost 200 nations of the world. When traditional phonics was replaced by whole language learning, our reading scores plummeted. In the 1990s, traditional math instruction was replaced with new math. After observing the plummeting math scores in California after just 1 year of use, Senator Robert Byrd commented to Congress, "The awful new math textbook obviously fails to do in 812 pages what comparable Japanese textbooks do so well in 200 pages." Teaching traditional English skills like diagramming and grammar instruction were widely dispensed with because they were boring to students. But according to the nation's report card, now only 1/3 of our students can write at a proficient level and only 2% can write at an advanced level. The Pew Research Center says that U.S. students' academic achievement still lags that of their peers in many other countries. In 2015, the PISA results of the 71 countries tested placed the United States 38th in math, 24th in science, and 36th in reading, not exactly on the top of the heap. Michigan ranks 27th on the 2023 National Education Ranking. I know that we have a great effort here in Grant, and I really appreciate everything that I've heard from our teachers and the people that come up here to speak and all. And American education used to be the best in the world. I believe as a nation we can accomplish those goals again. My objective tonight was not to find fault, but to give some facts regarding what you said, Sabrina, and I thank you that you expressed yourself as a board member. You expressed your concern and your regard for the basics of good education, and I think we're headed toward that good education in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dorinda.
Melissa Haynes, City of Grant. I've got just a couple questions. I was following along with the retirement incentive plan. Can you tell me, Ken, when was this, you stating that this was not brought to the board during the contract negotiations, it was never seen by the board. When was it brought to the board's attention? Can anyone confirm for me when you first learned of this?
Are you talking about before or recently? Because I had never seen it. Like myself, I never seen it.
So within the past 6 months, the past year?
I think Kevin can, after your comments, Kevin probably can give you on that. But just ask your questions, because during this time, just state what you want, and then we'll address it. Okay?
That's fine. Sabrina confirmed you did not learn of it within until the past 6 months or so. I'm new to attending financial meetings. I'm trying to learn more about the school board finances. I know I myself have attended 3 meetings within the past year. I don't know exactly the timeline, but I know in each one of them, this was on the financials. And I know that Holly does an amazing job of answering questions about things and explaining things as she goes through. So I was aware of this, but the board who has been approving the payments and approving the budget and approving all the adjustments, you're telling me that you had no idea since that was signed that you guys were approving payouts of that amount to teachers?
No, that I knew. The contract itself that was never signed by the board, I had never seen. That I never seen.
So you're saying that you never saw the contract, but you guys were aware of it? Because it sounds like from the comments that were made tonight that some of you weren't aware that this was even a thing that was happening.
Wasn't aware it wasn't board approved. It never hit the board for approval.
But did the board not approve it every time they approved Holly's budget and payouts?
That I'm not sure because it was never seen, so I'm not sure when that was even put through.
Okay. Kevin, I did a quick question for you. Has your family discussed moving out of the city or out of our area?
I've never been in the area.
You're in Greenville? That's more than 25 miles away?
I'm actually in Stanton, and yeah, it is.
Okay, so at the last board meeting, you stated you would not be interviewing for a position. And you also stated you were retiring. So now you're taking on a 3-year commitment. What made you decide to interview for this position and why?
Well, I didn't say I was planning on retiring. I didn't say I was. I've got grandchildren in the district.
Okay, so that made you decide you would interview?
I'm still not going to interview. I think this is an interview right now that I've done for the last 2 months.
There was no interview that I was aware of. So no interview has been conducted. And yet, Ken, you took it upon yourself to spend money with Clark Hill to create a contract specific to the needs to match Aiken without discussing it with the board or getting approval. How much did that cost us with Clark Hill? How much are above? We already tripled our budget. How much higher is our budget going?
All right, excuse me. Dr. Mike Maximchuk, I am the GEA president. Technically, membership chair is the title, but more colloquially, we use the term president. I was vaguely aware that the board was considering a resolution to rescind, basically, the early retirement incentive based off earlier comments from Mr. Aiken that Marshall Great said that any of the letters of agreement that are between the board and the GEA aren't worth the paper they are written on. I will tell you the position of the GEA as well as the MEA is that anytime there is a bargaining happening in good faith, that the superintendent is the bargaining agent and representative for the school board, just like we've got a chief negotiator. And so if it's been signed by those two, it is in good faith. Secondly, I want to clarify a few things because there were some questions about the TA, tentative agreement, for those of you guys who aren't familiar with it, or the LOA. So the letter of agreement, that was made at the request of then board president Chris Leslie. Chris asked us to remove that from the contract as part of the negotiation process. It was to be part of the contract for the 2022 to 2024 contract. To get the board on board, just because not sure with finances, we were still kind of coming out of COVID, to make the board more comfortable with it, we agreed that it would be a letter of agreement. If you look at the contract, it was signed, and when it was presented to our membership, it was a package deal of the letter of agreement for the retirement incentive, for the duration of the contract, as well as the contract itself. And I just looked at the meeting minutes that are online. 6 board members were present, and it was a 6-0 vote, all in favor of ratifying our contract. And I know for a fact that part of that was the TA, or the letter of agreement. Chris Leslie, Rob Skidema, Rachel Gort, Neil Gears, Danette Obanoff, and Diane Ring all voted in favor of it. May 26th, 2022. So I guess my next question, if we bargained this in good faith, why are you bringing it up now? We've had this for several years. I've met with Holly. We've discussed this. We've enacted paperwork and contracts for teachers to get paid. Why now? I'd like some answers as the union president, because the next step, we're going to end up, well, not we, the board's going to spend more legal fees because this will be grieved. Per our contract, we have 15 days to grieve it, and you will be hearing from the GEA if we don't resolve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Joshua Stein, City of Grant. Always want to keep it positive. the solar eclipse today, some of those memories and experiences that can promote the imagination and future interest in careers. So I was really appreciative to hear about the student experience with that opportunity today. New question I have based on Mike's comments. Did the board just lie to us about their knowledge of the letter of agreement, or did we learn that you guys don't read what you vote on? Let's see. One of my early childhood memories, consequences from my actions. I don't know what movie I was supposed to see. Me and my siblings could not stop fighting in the car. We were warned, if you don't stop fighting, we'll turn around. We didn't stop fighting, we turned around. The recall is a consequence of your actions. The legal fees are a consequence of your actions. The attention out here is a consequence of your actions, right? You could form a hypothesis. If I make this surprise motion to take away a resource from the community, what's going to happen? I guess you guys didn't go through the scientific method. You didn't research your thought process. I'm missing $24,000 in legal invoices because I had 105 tallied through February. So I got to go look at my records again and make sure I'm not missing something. That's more than 3 times what was spent on legal fees in 22-23. That's just absurd. Your policies suggest that you could give the superintendent a written notice and corrective action if you're not happy with his service. That was not presented as part of the report. Things are being sensationalized by the board. With Ms. Dode, there was no issues from MDE or NC RISA about her performance. They didn't care about your investigation of Zuver. There were no criminal complaints issued as a result of the Zuver investigation. Kevin said it could cost the district millions of dollars in special ed funds. That's false. And now to get to the real issue is the hate by the board, the grooming by the board, right? So Richard, maybe you got some heifers and bulls that could be donated to improve the protein, but that's innuendo. You're using innuendo to equate people with animals. You did it in the school lunchroom, right? That's not out on the farm. You did it in the cafeteria when you weren't welcome at the school. So you're having conversations about gender identity at school. That's grooming. Sabrina, you, unprompted, in February, talked about sexual identity and how it shouldn't be brought up in school. And if you're an adult, you can make that choice. If you're not, you can't. At 16, people can consent to sexual activity. At 18, they're an adult. There's adults in this school. There's people who consent to sexual activity in this school. And you're pushing your own views and agendas on that. Despicable.
My name's Isaac Gore, and I live at 1717. You guys heard that already. I would like to address the post made by my mom. The post goes like this. If they weren't grooming kids, they wouldn't be so mad when we ask them to leave them alone. This post was not saying that LGBTQ kids are groomers. Rather, this post is saying that the adults that push their LGBTQ agenda on minor children are groomers. Not once did it state that the LGBTQ kids were the groomers. This post also adds that because of the adults grooming, the kids they made when we asked them to leave the kids alone. The people who get offended by this post took it out of context. This post was made on a private page, and as Tracy has said, it's on a private page. If you don't like it, look away. And if you take one thing from the speech away, it is this. Just remember, you are a board member. Just because you are a board member does not mean you lose your First Amendment right of freedom of speech. But that's it.
Thank you, Isaac. Any other public comment?
Sarai Woodruff Gall. I live at 112th Street in Grant, Michigan. I was not planning to speak today. I had my nephew, he passed away this morning. He was actually gay, and I actually am leaving tomorrow morning, flying out to Utah to be with my sister. And I'm very confused about that post now, because I'm now wondering if I'm the groomer because I supported my nephew. So Rachel Gort, question, and to you, Sabrina. Am I a groomer because I supported my nephew? Am I a groomer because I support my daughter? Both of my daughters, because they are part of the LGBTQ+. Who's a groomer? Please, I need to know who you two think are groomers. Is it every single person that supports their child? My nephew never came out to his dad. My nephew never came out to his father because he knew exactly how they would react, because they're people exactly like you two, as well as you, Rich. So, who are groomers? Am I a groomer? Because I used to be a teacher. There are teachers here that support the LGBTQ+. So, do we have groomers? Because let's see, oh, people are clapping. So are we saying that 75% of the people in this room are groomers? Because you guys have it backwards. You guys need to realize that, like, you guys are Christians. Well, guess what? So am I. And Christ said to love everyone and to support everyone and to be there for people, and that it's not your place to judge anyone. That is Christ and God's job to judge, not y'all's job. So, I am very upset today. I wasn't planning on coming, but I'm sure as heck glad I am. And also, who wrote that for your son? Oh, good job then. I'm very proud of you because you did.
Ma'am,
use
please
the first
address the board.
I was,
Please
and then
address
he
the
answered.
board.
I was asking her a question, and then he
Continue
spoke.
to address the board, please.
Well, he spoke.
He spoke out of turn. Address the board,
Okay,
please.
well, that's fine. I said I'm very proud of him then. But seriously, want to know, am I a groomer? Is Tracy a groomer? She supports her child. The people that were clapping, are they groomers? Because y'all need to go. Seriously, you need to go. Need to go.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kelly Ashbaugh, 1090 Beeler Road. Know you guys have been having it tough. I have usually at a township board meeting at this time. And serving as a board, I appreciate how much you guys are doing. It's not fun when people don't agree with you, taking hard stances. The big thing, the board, I'm not in support of the recall. I kind of think it's a waste of money that the recall, because the school has to pay for the recall. The vote comes up in November. We could have just voted it then, however everybody wanted. This recall is costing the school money. I know that because the township, we have a bill that the school is paying for the township to have this election in May. Then also just want to say I don't think we need to worry about all the other political stuff. I just want you guys to focus on reading and writing and math. All kids get bullied. It doesn't matter what they're thinking. My kid, who can do different things and my other kid can do different things, they get bullied for different things. They get bullied because they're big. They get bullied because they're smart. They get bullied. It's just, they got to grow up. They got to live above it. And I think we need to teach our kids just to stand on who they want to be, whatever it's what they want to be. But that shouldn't involve the politics of what you guys have to do. You just need to focus on the right thing. As a person and as a taxpayer, I'm not a teacher, but to incentivize somebody and give them money to retire, that's tax dollars, and that's what we worry about at our township. That's taxpayer money that you're spending. I mean, the union may have allocated it, but I just don't see how that's fair. Just because somebody's going to retire, they get an extra $20,000 to incentivize retirement? Just, not mine. Cup of tea. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mikhail Solcina, 130 West Davina Drive. I'm just here and I'd like to express that we have an upcoming election happening on May 7th, 2024. Michigan also has absentee and early voting options. I'm encouraging everyone here, whatever your position, to get out and vote. Let the people decide how Grant Public Schools should be run. Clearly, there's been support from the community to get a recall on the ballot. Ultimately, it'll be the voters, the people of this community, who will decide the outcome. I'm all in favor of that. I'm in favor of democracy. I'm in favor of the rule of law, as I hope all of you are serving on this board. For that reason, I'm encouraging everyone here to get out and vote on May 7th, 2024 at your local polling place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Spangler. I have learned over the past year or so that I really have to be careful what I say and who I say it to, because things get twisted around. So now that I'm working for the school and the bus garage, things get twisted around even more. But I did notice that the Grant Public Schools had posted that us bus drivers need more drivers. So I think that some of you should come and work for us. You should really try to get your CDL. It's really difficult, and I think it's something that is really important for these kids. So maybe think about it. Another thing I would like to address is I'm all for Kevin Aiken being superintendent, but I think that you guys not having interviews for other people is wrong. I went through that situation when the high school had interviewed for a secretary position, and I didn't get an interview. And it literally crushes your spirit. Whether I had gotten it or not, I didn't have the opportunity to talk about how I felt and why I wanted the position and what I would be good at or not even good at, or what I would have to learn. And I think that that is the same thing with the superintendent. And like I said, I'm all for Kevin getting it, because I think that he's great at what he does, and I think that he's not a yes person like our other superintendent. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Nicole.
Any other public comment? Okay. That moves us on to discussion items. What does the board have?
Nicole, I just want to address, I believe some have been on the bus runs. Just let you know, I have done morning runs, I've done afternoon runs, and probably, I don't know, maybe 6-8 weeks ago, I was in the bus office and talked to just get a feel what's going on, met the maintenance, head of maintenance there. So just let you know that board members do things like that. It's not broadcasted necessarily, but you're right. If all of us could ride on the buses, we all could visit like breakfasts, lunch, all of that. That is open to, board members. We can attend, we can walk through the schools and so forth. And I believe that many of us have done such, but just to let you know, okay?
Anything from the board?
Yeah, I have a few things. First, apologies that I was late for tonight's meeting. We at my work had a eclipse viewing party, which was pretty spectacular. I hope that you all got a chance to see the eclipse. Kind of bad timing as goes for school groups, but I feel for all of our bus drivers who had to drive home this afternoon. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. One of the things, I have several things that I want to bring up, some answers or at least opinions, I guess, for people that have asked questions. But I want to first start out by once again thanking our staff and thanking our students for just the tremendous work that you have done this year, which has, I think, been just a kind of a challenging and weird kind of school year this year with everything going on. So I commend all of you for coming in and day out when I know it always hasn't been easy. And thank you for contributing and doing what you do. I just, was thinking about it, spring is such a cool time of the year, especially when you look at the school system. We're coming off of spring break, big things on the horizon. I know SAT testing is starting up soon, and that means that PSAT, testing is happening for younger students. Yeah, spring sports finally might have a decent day to get outside and not have to brave the elements quite so bad. We'll have prom coming up soon in the high school. There's just so much that's going on, and there's so much to celebrate at this time of the year. It's the beginning of, the end of a school year. And so I just want to say, keep up the great work. You're almost there, and enjoy these last few, months. Administrators, keep doing your great work. Teachers, staff, everybody keep doing what you're doing. I commend you all. A couple of things about, that have been brought up. One of the questions is, who could we work with as a district when it comes to compliance and oversight of our special education program? That's NC-RESA. NC-RESA is in charge of special education, get funding for special education, have staffing for that very purpose. And I guess from my understanding, it's been a little challenging working with our district in that regard. So I hope that comes, that changes. And I think this audit will indicate that it does need to change. And so, yes, there are entities that's what they do, and we are lucky that we have one in our county that can provide those services. I hear a lot about education and how it was, and I hate to break it to you, but going back in time isn't a reality. Looking to regress in the way that we teach based off of today's students. It always just kind of cracks me up when people are like, I remember back, this is how I learned. Well, yeah, you also weren't dealing with the same challenges. Challenges, no, yes, but the same challenges that our students today are facing. We live in a digital technology world where at the, seconds, not even seconds, information galore is available. And some of it's great, some of it's not. So we have to do what we can to move forward. And the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic, all that is never away or gone from our curriculum. It may look a little different to you of the older generation, but it's still there. So I've never met a community or a district that has succeeded by going backwards. It just doesn't happen. The question about why would we be doing early retirement incentive, that's taxpayer money. It's a cost-cutting matter, simply that. You give this incentive for people to retire earlier. which means that the district is not paying that full contract of, I'll just use for lack of a better term, a tenured staff member. So you can eliminate those extra costs, for a smaller chunk of money. And then you're basically looking at then replacing that person or filling that position with a lower fee or a lower price point educator because they're new more often than not. That's why that incentive is there. It actually saves the district money and therefore taxpayers. So I hope that helps, clear that up a little bit. This weekend was crazy. I don't know about the rest of you, my phone was going crazy. And I was trying to think of a word to describe what was happening. And the only word I can land on is pathetic. And so I'll remind my fellow board members about some bylaws that we have when it comes to social media and our ethics. Avoid being placed in a position of conflict of interest and refrain from using board positions for personal partisan gain. I don't know how you could deny that that was personal and partisan gain for what posts were being shared. Take no private action that will compromise the board or administration and respect the confidentiality of information that is privileged under applicable law. So I've had this ongoing debate since June with our legal counsel representative, Marshall Great. Because there's a case that was in, 21, 22, that went to court. And it was basically about access to board members' phone records and text message records if they were talking about board business. Because, I saved it all. I have all kinds of stuff, that I saw. And I wanted to know if that was something that could be foiable. And I got stonewalled every way that I could, bring up the question, even with, reaching out to legal counsel at the state. And they said, yeah, that case basically makes it foiable. But it was still, I was told, and I'm pretty sure probably community members were told, no, that's not something you can get. And then just turn around and see, a board member with a fake account disclosing information that was shared in emails and in closed sessions and between board members. It was just quite, pathetic and disgusting. And it also then goes back to pointing out and pointing a finger at our former superintendent, which, Mike, in my opinion, that was brought up this way today because it was an opportunity to disparage our former superintendent once again. And I'll remind this board that, maybe look again at that buyout contract because there's, language about what can and cannot be said afterwards, or at least an understanding and agreement. And for the attacks to continue, Brett's no longer here. Can just let it go. He's not coming back. And I've talked to him, and he misses this community, but he doesn't miss this. And he was ready to be done with this. But so I shared with them, I'm like, yeah, your text messages and your emails are being shared publicly. And he was not happy about that because he walked out of that meeting going, yep, I'm not supposed to say anything bad about the board, and the board's not supposed to say anything bad about me. So I don't know. This just keeps going, and what I'm concerned about is then we're going to get Clark Hill even more money. So, yeah, this has kind of turned into a bad joke, a bad, expensive joke. And I'm actually kind of glad that I missed the first part because that would have been really hard for me to be here in person and see people that I care about who have given everything to this district go, I can't do it anymore. I'm leaving. That's just sad.
Any other discussion items? Anything from public comment that anybody wants to address? So I do want to address a couple of the things that were asked. First off, one of the notes that I've got underlined here is about expired milk and uncooked meat. That should never happen in the school. And I do not believe that in any way that is ever intentional. If it does happen, I think it needs to be brought to the building superintendent or the building administrator's attention so that it can be addressed. I expect that never happens in the school, for one, and I think that is. I don't know about it. I don't know what to tell you. As far as the question was asked about the incentive plan and when did we know about it, there's two pieces there. When did we first hear about it, and when did we first find out that it never actually had a board vote? I first found out, or I don't know when I found out specifically when it didn't have a board vote, but it was sometime after Mr. Maximchuk actually shared the letters of agreement, and I asked a couple questions about at what point did we actually approve that? Because if we approved it, fine, we approved it. But I will also point out that Dr. Maximchuk actually mentioned that was a request from a past board president that it be part of a letter of agreement, and that is fine. However, the board president does not have the authority to approve anything unilaterally. The board actually still has to approve that. So contracts have to be approved by the board. And I have not gone back and forth on that at all. Contracts have to be approved by the board. If we are spending money under a contract, we have to approve it. I personally, I do not have the authority to approve anything. A matter of fact, it was back in December, January timeline when I came back to this board and said, hey, I actually signed something and I shouldn't have signed it without your approval. Can I get your retroactive approval? That is just part of being on the board. I don't have that authority, and nor will I exercise that type of authority. I'm sorry, it's not public comment. It is not public. Fawn, if you are going to continue, you are going to leave. So if yes, the GEA contract may have been approved at that board meeting. I have not looked at those set of minutes specifically. I will look at them, but the letter of agreement also has to be approved specifically. Okay? If it's not part of the contract, it's not part of the contract. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that all these letters of agreement and side deals are okay when they need board approval. I mean, let's just have them approved. Then there's no question.
So you're saying now all contracts and letter of agreement.
Tracy, this is not public discussion time. This is not public discussion time.
So both have to be approved by the board.
Are you going to leave too? Not every letter of agreement needs to be approved. It depends on what that letter of agreement is for.
So how do you choose which it is?
Well, it really depends on whether or not we're spending money and whether or not it goes over the superintendent's threshold.
Okay, see, that's a simple answer.
And I just gave it to you.
Let's see, what else was there? I think that's all I documented that I wanted to touch base on. Anybody else?
Just one more comment, and then I'll be done for tonight. You look at good leadership, and you come into a situation and you basically have two choices, especially a situation where we could all agree that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in public education, because it's hard, and also on school boards. And we've had many conversations about, getting on the school board, that there's really not a very good onboarding, system in place. We have lots of things to work on. But so you come in, with this idea, we're gonna right the ship. We're gonna make everything be more cohesive and like file bylaws, and we're gonna clean this mess up. There's two ways you can go about doing that. One, you can come in and you can be empathetic, with this situation, understand that there's a long history before you join, and work with others to find the solutions and compromise or whatever, and work kind of harmoniously. And then there's coming in with a hammer and just breaking shit left and right. That is what this board has decided to do at the cost of $129,000 and growing, and people exiting like crazy. Instead of going, like, for example, our superintendent, hey, we have some issues with the way this may have been done. Best practices, there may have been a little gray area, nothing illegal, really nothing that even warranted, I don't know how long that investigation went, because I don't know when it actually started. Kind of seems like, from going back to past meetings, it may have been in that October, November range. Those conversations could have been happening, but no, it's like, boom, you're done, we're out. That is not a way to lead. That is a way to destroy. That's all I have to say.
Any other discussion items by the board? All right, with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you.